Good evening and welcome back to another episode of The Longing, where tonight we are going to be continuing to read The Sleeper Awakes by H.G. Wells. So, let's get going. He proceeded to details, and they had a lengthy conversation. Graham learnt that university extensions still existed in a modified form. There is a certain type of girl, for example, said the Surveyor General, dilating with a sense of his usefulness, with a perfect passion for severe studies, when they are not too difficult, you know. We cater for them by the thousand. At this moment, he said with a Napoleonic touch, nearly 500 phonographs are lecturing in different parts of London on the influence exercised by Plato and Swift on the love affairs of Shelley, Hazlitt and Burns. And afterwards they write essays on the lectures, and the names in order of merit are put in conspicuous places. You see how your little germ has grown? The illiterate middle class of your days has quite passed away. About the public elementary schools, said Graham. Do you control them? The Surveyor General did. Entirely. Now Graham, in his later democratic days, had taken a keen interest in these, and his questioning quickened. Certain casual phrases that had fallen from the old man with whom he had talked in the darkness recurred to him. The Surveyor General, in effect, endorsed the old man's words. We try and make the elementary schools very pleasant for the little children. They will have to work so soon. Just a few simple principles. Obedience, industry. You teach them very little? Why should we? It only leads to trouble and discontent. We amuse them. Even as it is, there are troubles, agitations. Where the labourers get the ideas, one cannot tell. They tell one another. There are socialistic dreams, anarchy even. Agitators will get to work among them. I take it, I have always taken it, that my foremost duty is to fight against popular discontent. Why should be people made unhappy? I wonder, said Graham thoughtfully, but there are a great many things I want to know. Lincoln, who had stood watching Graham's face throughout the conversation, intervened. There are others, he said in an undertone. The Surveyor General of Schools gesticulated himself away. Perhaps, said Lincoln, intercepting a casual glance, you would like to know some of these ladies. The daughter of the manager of the piggeries was a particularly charming little person with red hair and animated blue eyes. Lincoln left him a while to converse with her, and she displayed herself as quite an enthusiast for the dear old days, as she called them, that had seen the beginning of his trance. As she talked, she smiled, and her eyes smiled in a manner that demanded reciprocity. I have tried, she said, countless times, to imagine those old romantic days, and to you they are memories. How strange and crowded the world must seem to you. I have seen photographs and pictures of the past, the little isolated houses built of bricks, made out of burnt mud and all black with soot from your fires, the railway bridges, the simple advertisements, the solemn, savage, puritanical men in strange black coats, and those tall hats of theirs, iron railway trains on iron bridges overhead, horses and cattle, and even dogs running half wild about the streets, and suddenly you have come into this. Into this, said Graham, out of your life, out of all that was familiar. The old life was not a happy one, said Graham. I do not regret that. She looked at him quickly. There was a brief pause. She sighed encouragingly. No? No, said Graham. It was a little life, and unmeaning. But this, we thought the world complex and crowded and civilized enough. Yet I see, although in this world I am barely 4 days old, looking back on my own time, that it was a queer barbaric time, the mere beginning of this new order. The mere beginning of this new order. You will find it hard to understand how little I know. You may ask me what you like, she said, smiling at him. Then tell me who these people are. I'm still very much in the dark about them. It's puzzling. Are there any generals? Men in hats and feathers? Of course not. No. I suppose they are men who control the great public businesses. Who is that distinguished-looking man? That? He is a most important officer. That is Morden. He is managing director of the antibilious pill department. I've heard that his workers sometimes turn out a myriad pills a day in the 24 hours. Fancy, a myriad. A myriad? No wonder he looks proud, said Graham. Pills. What a wonderful time it is. That man in purple. He is not quite one of the inner circle, you know, but we like him. He is really clever and very amusing. He is one of the heads of the medical faculty of our London University. All medical men, you know, wear that purple. But of course, people who are paid by fees for doing something. She smiled away the social pretensions of all such people. Are any of your great artists or authors here? No authors. They are mostly such queer people, and so preoccupied about themselves, and they quarrel so dreadfully. They will fight, some of them, for precedence on staircases. Dreadful, isn't it? But I think Raysbury, the fashionable capillotomist, is here, from Capri. Capillotomist, said Graham. Ah, I remember. An artist. Why not? We have to cultivate him, she said apologetically. Our heads are in his hands. She smiled. Graham hesitated at the invited compliment, but his glance was expressive. Have the arts grown with the rest of civilized things, he said. Who are your greatest painters? She looked at him doubtfully, then laughed. For a moment, she said, I thought you meant... She laughed again. You mean, of course, those good men you used to think so much of because they could cover great spaces of canvas with oil colours, great oblongs, and people used to put the things in gilt frames and hang them up in rows in their square rooms. We haven't any. People grew tired of that sort of thing. But what did you think I meant? She put a finger significantly on a cheek whose glow was above suspicion, and smiled and looked very arch and pretty and inviting. And here, and she indicated her eyelid. Graham had an adventurous moment. Then a grotesque memory of a picture he had somewhere seen of Uncle Toby and the widow flashed across his mind. An archaic shame came upon him. He became acutely aware that he was visible to a great number of interested people. I see, he remarked inadequately. He turned awkwardly away from her fascinating facility. He looked about him to meet a number of eyes that immediately occupied themselves with other things. Possibly he coloured a little. Who was that talking to the lady in saffron? He asked, avoiding her eyes. The person in question, he learnt, was one of the great organisers of the American theatres, just fresh from a gigantic production at Mexico. His face reminded Graham of a bust of Caligula. Another striking-looking man was the Black Labour Master. The phrase at the time made no deep impression, but afterwards it recurred. The Black Labour Master. The little lady, in no degree embarrassed, pointed out to him a charming little woman as one of the subsidiary wives of the Anglican Bishop of London. She added encomiums of the episcopal courage. Hitherto there had been a rule of clerical monogamy. Neither a natural nor an expedient condition of things. Why should the natural development of the affections be dwarfed by and restricted because a man is a priest? And, by the by, she added, are you an Anglican? Graham was on the verge of hesitating inquiries about the status of a subsidiary wife, apparently a euphemistic phrase, when Lincoln's return broke off this very suggestive and interesting conversation. They crossed the aisle to where a tall man in crimson and two charming persons in Burmese costume, as it seemed to him, awaited him diffidently. From their civilities he passed to other presentations. And with that, we come to the end of the episode. So, I will say thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, or night. No matter what time of day it is, I hope you all have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow for more of Belonging. Goodbye.